What's up? Welcome to Locked On Lakers for a Tuesday. LeBron James is reportedly not involved with the Lakers' search for a new head coach. Is this believable? And why is the answer no? We'll explain on Locked On Lakers coming up next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Lakers your first listen every day, Monday through Friday, no matter where you get your podcasts. It's always free, never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can watch the show, hang out with a community of over 24,000 subscribers. It's a great group of Laker fans, lively, enthusiastic, respectful. That is important because social media is a cesspool, not this place. Leave comments. We often use them to help shape the show. Subscribe to the audio and video feeds for Locked On Lakers so you never miss anything. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And with that housekeeping out of the way, I'm Andy Kamenetsky. My brother Brian is still dealing with some vocal issues. That's why there was no show on Monday. Apologies for that. In his place, friend of the show, Harrison Faigen. You can follow him on Twitter at HMFagan. He has covered the Lakers in various capacities for years. How would you describe your role now at SBNation?
That is an interesting question. First of all, thanks for having me, Andy. I'm glad that I was your go-to when you're like, who is another bald white guy that I can get on 2 hours notice that probably has nothing going on today to fill in for Brian? As you know, when you join the Locked On Network, you take a blood pact that down the line, if like 5 years or so after you leave, a co-host of that show asks you to come back on and fill in for the guy, you have to do it. And so, it's a weird section that David added to the contract, but I stand by it. And
you signed it. What are you going to do?
Yeah, well, with my blood, and
it's part of your non-compete.
Yeah, I would describe my role as, I'm the editorial manager, so I just sort of oversee all of our team sites and then help manage our playoff coverage, and also blog about things like Rudy Gobert hitting maybe the most improbable, clutch time shot in NBA history for SBNation.com.
All right, we may, and you've covered the Lakers for years, and we may get into the Nuggets getting eliminated, which I imagine has a lot of Laker fans terribly, terribly sad at the concept of Mike Malone being unhappy and salty during post-game press conferences. I'm sure all Laker fans, their hearts bleed for him. Before we get into the first item on the agenda, which is LeBron James reportedly not being involved in the Lakers coaching search, as part of your agreement to be on this show, Harrison, there's a victory lap nonsense that I promised you in order to get your cooperation. So go right ahead. This has been you and Anthony Irwin. You are both, for those unaware, the former co-hosts of this actual show. We
had a much less cool intro segment when I was on. There was no CGI. It was just me going like, "Hey guys, I'm Harrison, and this is Locked On Lakers."
Well, we've all come a long way, Harrison.
Yeah.
But this is something you and Anthony have been digging your heels into and have held on to like a dog that will not give up the bone under any circumstances. Go right ahead and take your victory lap and explain to the folks what it is.
So I don't want to take too much of a victory lap over my hypothetical. It's more like it's a hypothetically the Lakers should have lost and then maybe they could have won lap, and you can't prove me wrong because all I was told in the aftermath was that I was a madman. I had the Lakers own former coach say that I must have just gotten out of the insane asylum, and
talking about intentionally losing during the play-in against the Pelicans in order to get the Kings for the 8th seed, and therefore you take on the Thunder as opposed to the Nuggets in the first round.
Well, at the time, it was the Warriors or the Kings. I argued it before we even knew who the Lakers would be playing. It was the day the Lakers, we found out their seed. And so it was either you play the Warriors or Kings with a chance, after losing to the Pelicans, with a chance to play the Thunder. And all I heard in the aftermath of that was, A, you're crazy. B, you're going to have to play the Nuggets anyway. Oh, well, guess not. I guess maybe a team with an injury-prone point guard and a sort of shooting guard, small forward guy that is a little unreliable at times and has had health as a question. Maybe they may not get past the Wolves, something that I sort of maintained at the time. Or maybe, the Nuggets are not looking as strong by the time that they get to the conference finals as they were in the first round. And, this Thunder team, certainly nobody looked at the way that they played against Dallas and was like, or the Pelicans, and was like, oh man, that's a team the Lakers couldn't have beat. Dallas basically beat them the same way that the Lakers would have had to try, by sort of like, getting everything at the basket, getting all kinds of offensive rebounds, and just like out physicaling, poor skinny, like stretched out version of me, Chet Holmgren. And it's just, that was not a team that was invincible. And maybe at that point you can get past the second round. The reason I can't take too much of a victory lap on this before everyone like either crashes their car or turns off the podcast is that watching this version of the Wolves, it's hard for me to believe that in seriousness that the Lakers could have actually beaten them by the time that they got to the conference finals, with the way that they were and the way that the Wolves have been playing. But you also can never prove to me that they couldn't have beaten them and couldn't have won the title this year. So I'm saying that by winning that game against the Pelicans, the Lakers cost themselves banner 18. That is my head.
And in the process might have given the Celtics, who obviously in this alternate universe the Lakers beat, might have given the Celtics banner 18 in the process.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, that's tough. That's a tough look for Rob Pelinka. But I guess he's just not as committed to winning titles as I am, and willing to lose against the Pelicans.
Well, because the Lakers did not take your advice, they lost against Denver in the first round, and Darvin Ham ended up losing his job, which means that the Lakers are looking for a new coach. And it took roughly 30 seconds before multiple reports started flying around, very, very well-sourced reporters from all different sites, saying that JJ Redick, LeBron's podcast partner, long distinguished career as an NBA player, obviously very smart basketball mind, but also literally no coaching experience whatsoever, unless you count coaching like 10-year-olds. He has never coached anybody. That JJ Redick very quickly became the perceived frontrunner in this search before even an interview. Like, he hasn't even been interviewed yet, and he's already the guy to beat. Which naturally,
well, that's the great thing about podcasts, Andy, is you don't need to interview someone. You can get a real good sense of their personality from, Rob's obviously been locked in on Mind the Game. Okay. He's trying to learn about basketball before this coaching search. And that was like and he's like, wait, what if I just hired this guy? Like, there's a different universe where we just send Rob a bunch of Laker film room videos and Pete is coaching the team, at the end of, like, by the time the draft starts.
First of all, I'd love that, because that means I'd get more access to Pete Zayas, future Lakers head coach. I also love the idea of Pelinka in his mind just doing the interview by listening to a bunch of podcasts on the way from his house to El Segundo. Like, basically the interview's been conducted. But
that's optimizing your time, Andy. It's
it's how smart GMs win the league. But
it's Tired is like, this meeting could have been an email. Like, Wired is this interview could you've been listening to my podcast.
Well, this has naturally led to many people, I think, quite logically assuming that this has been part of trying to keep LeBron James in the fold. He's got that player option. They're largely expect that he's going to return, but we don't know for sure. This is something to try to keep him invested during the final couple seasons that he plays, presumably with the Lakers. But according to Shams Charania on the Run It Back TV show with our friend Michelle Beadle, not the case. Quote, I am told LeBron James is not involved in the Lakers head coaching search. I reported on it last week. JJ Redick, James Borrego, and Sam Cassell, the lead initial targets, but LeBron James has made it clear this is the organization's decision. He's had no conversations with the Lakers about JJ Redick, his podcast partner. He's had no conversations with JJ about that position as well. I did speak to Rich Paul this morning, and he said LeBron James and JJ Redick, they do a podcast together. That does not mean he wants JJ Redick as his head coach. He is leaving it up to the organization. We'll see what LeBron James decides for his future. And then noted how If LeBron made all the decisions, Ty Lue would be the coach, Kyrie Irving would have been on the team, yada, yada, yada. So according to this messaging being given to Shams Charania, LeBron is not the one calling the shots. LeBron's not even involved in these conversations. Coming up, Harrison, I want to get your take on the believability of this, but also why, if it's actually believable, that might be worse, big picture, than some of the people putting this out might initially believe. Talk about that coming up next. Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. It is winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL. FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So just put up $5, win it, $150 in bonus bets, and you can use those on anything from spreads to money lines, player props, all sorts of different fun options. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, so what was your reaction, Harrison, when you heard this report from Shams Charania about LeBron not being as heavily involved in this decision-making process as basically everybody has assumed this whole time?
Yeah, I mean, so on one hand, I don't like the assertion that anyone that you podcast with, you're automatically endorsing to be Lakers head coach. You know, I just think I think Rich is right. It's like, oh, well, LeBron went on the Smartless podcast with with Will Arnett and like
Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes.
Yeah, and Sean Hayes. And, does he want the three of them to coach the Lakers? Nobody's declaring Will Arnett, although Will Arnett actually has sort of like the voice for it. Like, he could probably play an NBA coach at the very least. Like, maybe we get like Pete just giving him ideas or whatever, and Will just goes out there and sort of execute.
Puppet coach.
Yeah, that's the earpiece in. He's like, and I'm told that we're going to play big in this scenario. No, I mean, I think two things can be true. Right?
I mean, but he's never been on the Smartless podcast drawing up plays. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's doing a lot of basketball-y type things with JJ Redick at a time when it was both well reported and frankly dead ass obvious that he did not like what Darvin was doing. Like, it's not a mass. And again, JJ Redick has, by all reports, jumped to the front of the line with literally no coaching experience. Yes, Rich Paul is correct that just because he does a podcast with someone doesn't mean he automatically wants that guy to be his coach, but there's a little bit more contextually than he's presenting. I mean, like, I don't think LeBron wants all of the people that he's ever done the shop with to be his coach, but that's contextually a bit different. Like, I think Tiffany Haddish has been on. Like, I think it's safe to assume he's not lobbying for Tiffany Haddish
Schumer
to be the coach.
It's like
Amy Schumer. I don't think he wants them to be the coach.
Odell Beckham, maybe, we'll put him, get him in the interview at least, or have Rob listen to one of his podcasts. I don't know. It's, but in seriousness, like, I think two things can be true, right? Is that I actually would believe that LeBron is not directly telling the Lakers, hey, hire JJ, because that's generally not how LeBron sort of operates. He sort of makes his whims known through his actions and whatever, but he always sort of tries to leave himself plausible deniability and, has learned. This is a thing going way back to like Cleveland. This isn't just a Lakers thing. There were all the times in Cleveland in interviews where he talked about, like, I just play basketball. I'm just a basketball player. That's a front office question. How many times have you heard him give that answer while with the Lakers? Well, then, sometimes doing an interview and he's like, sure, I'd love to play with Kyrie Irving or Anthony Davis or whoever. But also, I'm not the GM. That's totally up to them. And so, like, I believe that LeBron did not like call up Rob Pelinka and he's like, hey, I got this co-host of my podcast. Like, he's pretty smart, actually, and I think he'd be a good coach. I don't think that it's that simple, but I also would believe that Lakers are, while LeBron is in this point where he has a little bit of leverage because he's extension eligible and, he's very clearly trying to get them to make some choices that he wants, about the team by sort of dithering and going back and forth on what he wants to do about that extension. I believe that the Lakers are like, hey, he hosts a podcast with this guy. it seems like they get along pretty well. Maybe this would be something that sort of gets him to extend and stay with us longer term and, whatever. But I don't think I believe that it's not that direct of him just going to them and he's like, you hire JJ or I'm not, if you hire Mike and Nori, I'm out. It's not, I don't think it's that simple. And so, I think the way that it's being presented is a little asinine, to be honest.
Well, okay. I mean, it depends. I agree with you that he is not likely marched into Pelinka's office and said, it's Redick or it's not me. Pick a lane. Like,
do you know how good this is going to be for my podcast? If we are, how many downloads we're going to get post game?
Look, man, those FanDuel ads aren't going to sell themselves, man.
Come on, Rob. We're all trying to make money here.
Look, if you know a better way to hawk athletic greens, let me know. But otherwise, I need JJ Redick as my coach. I mean, yes, you're right. That has not happened, but it's similar to when Kobe used to always say, I never told the Lakers it was me or Shaq, pick one. I always believed Kobe because he never had to. Like, it was pretty obvious it was going to be pick one or the other of us. It ain't going to be both. So he didn't have to say it.
In like one of the 73 interviews where they said that they hated each other, right. I think they made it sort of clear.
But like, the thing is though, Redick has to have gotten towards the front of the line again by all reports that he is the guy that they seem most enamored with. He's the guy that I think they are looking to have wow them. Reportedly bringing Coach K as an advisor, that feels like in a lot of ways bringing in somebody to steer you in the direction you already want to go. Like, I get the idea
of Lakers. It's just like, hey, here's this you guys like this big name, right? Like, he's famous and he won a bunch of titles. Like, he should tell us what to do.
Like, I get the idea of going to Coach K to talk about JJ Redick. Like, I mean, I'm sure he'd be a good resource just to learn more.
Job reference. Yeah.
You have to have landed on Redick somehow. And if it's not, at the very least, some type of tangible impression that LeBron wants Redick, then in a lot of ways, to me, that's even worse. If you've just somehow decided JJ Redick is the guy, it means like basically you've been so wowed by this podcast. Like, you're so blown away by watching a guy draw up plays as if, like, let me make this clear. Redick is really good at this stuff. He's a great podcaster. Yeah. He's great in the booth. He's great on
really smart.
Yeah, he's really good at this stuff. But if you had LeBron and either Mike Nori or David Adelman or Sam Cassell do that type of podcast as well, it's probably pretty damn good. Like, I'm pretty sure Mike Nori can draw.
The Mike Nori version would actually probably be better based on his mid-game interviews, in the analogies that he makes.
And like this, by the way,
with all
this
due
is
respect to JJ.
Yeah, and this is, I want to make it clear. I've talked about this on other shows. This is not me saying that I think Redick would be a bad hire, because I can understand the idea.
We stand with all podcasting Americans and don't think that they should be denied jobs just based on their status as a podcaster.
Oh, no. I mean, he and I are part of the same union. Like, I got to stick up for my brethren. But it's more the idea that if he's at the front of this line with no resume of coaching to speak of, if it's not LeBron's push that's getting him there, then in a lot of ways, I have less faith about this process, especially when the Lakers have such a bad track record of landing on a coach that works for them. The idea that they would spot the guy with no experience who's clearly ready to just succeed. I don't have faith in their ability to just identify that without some type of push. And it makes me just concerned that they're kind of doing the star effery thing that they always do, except it's just they're picking the star effery media guy.
Yeah, it's funny. That's the exact phrase that I was about to use, and that it's like it's very much this brain trust and sort of how they operate. It would be very on brand, and it's sort of it's similar to like the Golden State Warriors, the old ownership group, being so wowed by Mark Jackson's, incredibly illuminating commentary on the NBA Finals broadcast and just being like, that guy, that's our coach, and it's just like, yeah, wait, this is how you sort of came to that decision? Like, that seems like maybe bad process, no matter how good you thought JJ was, on the call with Mike Breen and Doris. And like, it's very on brand for this brain trust and sort of their, I think, like, unique, like, visionlessness of about basketball, or like commitment to any defining principle beyond like, this name is sort of famous and I've been told that they're good. And so it's like, it's sort of it checks all the boxes for them, where if it goes wrong, they can blame it on LeBron, and Rob gets to continue on scot-free and whatever, which is clearly what Klutch and Rich and LeBron are trying to get out in front of with this Shams report. And it's sort of someone that they can be like, hey, it's a big name and Coach K told us it would be cool and whatever. Like, why do you need Coach K to tell you, who you should be hiring as head coach? Like, you have Coach K, Kurt Rambis, in the front office already, and like, we're all told like how the real Coach K.
Hashtag my Coach K.
Yeah. It's like at some level, it's like, what are you all doing in there then? If you're constantly sort of, they're teams with bigger front offices than the Lakers have and whatever, with more voices. And so I'm not trying to say that like more voices is a bad thing, but like, why it's just, why are you leaking that Coach K is helping you make this decision? Why are you leaking that you can see JJ Redick as a young Pat Riley? Like, why does everything have to have like a historical comp, to some Lakers thing that has come before? Like, why can't you just find sort of the right guy at the right time and seize on it, because you think you have a vision of how this roster should play, what additions you're going to make, and what sort of coach would best fit that? And instead, it's just like, this guy hosts a podcast with LeBron, so if it doesn't work, we could just blame it on him.
There are, though, some reports of another voice in the room that I actually think is very positive for the Lakers. So we'll talk about that coming up next. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. The easiest, most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more than or less than on 2 or more player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. Get in on the playoff action. Win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during the basketball postseason. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Turn $10 into 1,000 with basketball and hockey entries on PrizePicks during the playoffs. Again, America's #1 fantasy sports app. PrizePicks offers Apple Play for quick and easy deposits into your account. Again, simple to play. I make my picks, submit my entries in less than 60 seconds. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that code LockedOnNBA for first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Okay, so we were just talking about LeBron James and I guess the plausible deniability being put out there by Klutch that he's not a driving force in whoever the Lakers are going to hire to replace Darvin Ham. But there have been increasing reports coming out, Harrison, that I find really interesting, that Anthony Davis is getting more consideration in El Segundo for these decisions. Sam Amick was on the Rich Eisen show, Sam Amick from The Athletic. Quote, when they chose to fire Darvin Ham, I was told that one of the many, many considerations was that it was pretty evident that AD was not on board anymore with Darvin, and they know, like everyone else, that AD has a history of having asked for trades in the past. That's how he got to the Lakers from New Orleans. Last thing they wanted was for AD to be frustrated with the situation, and maybe those type of thoughts cross his mind. From Shams and Jovan Buha from The Athletic, a source said this should be more of a hire about AD than LeBron. And Shams, again, on the Run It Back TV show, talked about how James Borrego has a history as part of the Pelicans staff with AD. And maybe that in and of itself is influencing Borrego being reportedly among the front runners, not as high up as JJ Redick, but somebody that's getting serious consideration. And what I find interesting about that is just we never hear as much about Anthony Davis having that type of voice or things being built around AD. It's always through the lens of trying to either maximize LeBron's time, trying to keep LeBron happy, keep him on board, keep him engaged. But the reality to me, Harrison, is Anthony Davis is the guy in his prime. He is right now I think the Lakers' best player, but even if you think LeBron is still their most talented, Anthony Davis is the guy that you get the most out of over 82 games on both sides of the ball. Like, you can count on him to bring more game in, game out. And he's still in his prime, but he's on the back end of his prime. I feel like you should actually be making more decisions about AD than about LeBron. Just logically, if you remove, I guess, LeBron's stature as arguably the most powerful man in North American sports, like, AD actually makes more sense to be thinking about along those terms. So I'm happy to just hear reports about that kind of consideration.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's just sort of, it's incredible, like, sort of how bad of a job Darvin must have been doing to lose AD, who seems like one of the more coachable players, or at least stars ever. Like, pretty happy to go along, get along. I mean, part of the reason why you don't hear this stuff about AD is, I mean, a big chunk of it is just that, like, LeBron drives the discussion to some degree, right? And so all the national shows are going to talk about, oh, what does LeBron want? What does this mean for his legacy? That kind of thing. Like, Anthony Davis, he's a star, but he's not on that level of sort of national discussion, national reporting and digging and whatever. But he's also just like a pretty go along, get along, agreeable guy, where, you know, even like Frank's last season, I think AD was one of the last people that he lost, and like was still, you know, talking about, you know, Frank set us up with this and that and whatever and that sort of thing. And so, like, I think AD, you know, he just doesn't insert himself into these discussions as much, you know, I think is probably part of it. And, you know, and doesn't, but, you know, it was pretty clear from his comments at the end of the season that he was out on Darvin, you know, when he basically threw him under the bus for the game plan type of thing. Like, that takes real frustration, I think, long term with the coach to feel that way. So, you know, I mean, I don't want to go out there too far and be like, you know, because Anthony and I have a running joke that every preseason there's like a storyline about how Anthony Davis, this is the year he's going to become the vocal leader of the team, and then by like game 5 it's LeBron again, because of course it's LeBron, you know, like that's LeBron's personality style, and he's been the leader in every room he's been in since he was like 16. So you know, it's just like, I don't think that this is AD like taking the reins of the franchise from LeBron or anything like that. But I do think that, you know, hey, if he's willing to weigh in, you know, they should consider that opinion. I mean, I would trust his basketball insights to some degree more than the people that are often making these decisions. So, you know, that's a positive in and of itself.
Well, I mean, I think AD and LeBron, it's okay to get their input about who they think should be the next coach, or at the very least what they're looking for. Like, it makes sense to be trying to tailor it to those guys. I think that's how smart organizations land on their coaches. For me, it's not even so much the idea that AD may be more vocally assertive or trying to create more of an outward presence. If he is, fantastic, because it's yet another sign that the metaphorical baton is being passed his way. I just like the idea of the organization looking to tailor things more to him, because I actually think, for example, heading in next season, if the Lakers are going to try, whoever's on this roster, who's ever coaching them, to make a deep playoff run, a lot of this is going to be about positioning themselves to have the best seeding possible and to be able to play 82 games with, I think, more urgency and purpose than we saw this previous season. I think the West is just too difficult. Like, the days of dropping LeBron into the playoffs and you're good, those days are long since over. And just his time with the Lakers have proven this. The one year that they won a championship, I believe they were 1 seed that year. Like, this stuff matters.
They were, yeah. And they fought the whole year to earn home court that did not matter in the end.
I think there's only so much along those lines you can expect from LeBron. So in that sense, what AD needs, I think, ultimately is more important than what LeBron needs, because I think AD is going to be ultimately more impactful in trying to get the Lakers in that place. So I just like to see.
I also
more
think
and
that
more.
AD is more context, as a big, is just more context dependent than LeBron. LeBron,
Yes.
to some degree, is going to be able to thrive because of his versatility in like almost any environment. I mean, obviously, he's a little more context dependent as he, you know, approaches 40 or everything like that. And there's certain nights where he can do things and certain nights where he's not going to do certain things as well. But AD, you know, just by virtue of being like a defensive oriented big, it's going to matter more what the roster looks like behind him, because it's what kind of holes are you asking him to plug on the back line to make your defense passable? On offense, like, do you have guys that are going to actually pass him the ball? Do you have guys that know how to throw an entry pass besides LeBron? Like, there's sort of all these things that go into making him most effective, where LeBron, it's sort of like, everybody get out of it. It's not this simple, but I'm not going to get to like JJ Redick mind the game pods level, but to some degree it's like, everybody get out of the way. LeBron's going to do his thing, where AD, again, it's a little more complicated to get him going than that.
Only got a couple minutes left, but we would not be, I think, a good Lakers podcast.
Well, can I make one addition on the JJ Redick, Anthony Davis weighing in
please.
Part? Are you aware of JJ Redick's all defense teams this year?
No.
Well, he left AD off. So, if AD is weighing in on the coaching search.
Oh, JJ, you may be falling in the rankings before this interview. Well, I was going to say before the interview even started, but apparently you didn't need the interview to be at the top. So who knows how any of this
totally
stuff matters.
Positionless almost too. That's what's crazy. I'm looking at these things right now. His first team was Rudy Gobert, Victor Wembanyama, Bam Adebayo, Herb Jones, and then Alex Caruso. He had 3 bigs. He could put AD in there, but he thought, I guess.
Did he have AD in the second team? Did he do a second team?
No, he did a second team. Jared Allen, Jalen Suggs, KCP, Derek White, and SGA.
Wow. You want to talk about, by the way, just planting your flag.
He went positionless and then went SGA over AD.
This is Redick's way of saying, I'm getting hired. Let me tell you who's in charge, people. Me. All right, before we go, as noted earlier, the Denver Nuggets, who have now bounced the Lakers 2 seasons in a row in the playoffs. They were eliminated in Game 7 against the Minnesota Timberwolves, 98-90. There's a lot of different things that we can talk about. You can either make fun of Michael Malone, who clearly was pissed off about this, salty with the media. You can talk about what this sort of, you think, says about the Lakers' 5,000-foot view. But what was your first reaction when you see Denver go out in the second round, Harrison?
Was 5,000-foot view deliberate considering their elevation? Because if so, that was great wordplay.
Oh, I should have said 5,280-foot view.
I was like, wow, that was a pro radio guy over here. Incredible.
God, I was 280 miles off. Oh my God, that's amateur hour.
Yeah, it's okay. We like 280 miles. No, I think it's feet. I don't think there are 5,280 miles in the air. That would explain the home court advantage, if so. You're like playing on the moon. Guys literally can't breathe. I'm sorry. I always do this. I think my first reaction was just like, it's hard not to feel like feel for a guy like Mike Malone. That just seems like one of the all-time good dudes, pleasant to deal with, just really friendly, genial, classy, sportsman-like dude. And to just, to see him go out after his team let him down by not being able to play as many minutes as he overextended his veterans, and then blowing a 20-point lead as he didn't call timeouts and, things like that. And so, you just feel for him. And I hope that, I hope his trip to Cancun is really nice.
And that is as good a place to end it as anywhere. As always, Harrison, man, really appreciate you being here. Follow Harrison on Twitter at HMFaigen, Faigen. He handles all things Silver Screen. He handles all things SBNation for the NBA, but also chimes in a lot on the Lakers. He is a great Lakers follow. Appreciate the time as always, man. Thank you.
No, happy to be here. And next time I come on, we'll just pretend that I'm Brian, and we'll just list Brian Kamenetsky there. Whatever. I'll just fully fill in for him, and we'll see if anyone notices.
You're gonna have to completely bick yourself and shave the beard, but we'll see just how committed
I'll work
to the
on
beard.
it. Yeah, next time I'll commit to the bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to commit to the bit. Brian should be back for Wednesday, and we will see everyone then.